Okay, let's talk about how to do a tubeless tire conversion on the rear wheel of a Priority 600 bike. First things first, we take a little weight measurement and we can see that it starts out at 2.35 kilograms, which is just about 5.25 pounds. Alright, so let's go ahead and take the air out of the tube that's in the tire that the bike comes with, and we'll remove the little nut on the valve stem, and then get our handy heat gun because it's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the shop, and just warm up this tire so that it comes off the bead a lot easier. We'll just use our tire levers to do what they call breaking the bead, which is taking the bead off the rim. Not too hard when the tire's warm to the touch. Then we can take our tube out, go ahead and put the stem nut back on, and just kind of carefully roll it back up so that we can tape it, label it with a date, and hopefully reuse it someday in a tubeless tire, add tube sort of situation. Okay, now we're gonna glove up, drink some tea, and go ahead and finish removing the tire so that it's completely off the rim. After that, we're gonna take off this crappy rim tape, which we know does not work for a tubeless tire install, and just do a little inspection of these spoke nuts and spoke holes, make sure everything's smooth before we start taping this rim. So we can see the quality control is a little bit better on this rim, but still not great. And then we'll go ahead and use our caliper to measure the width of the rim, which is 23 millimeters. So now we're going to use some 91% isopropyl alcohol to clean off some of the oily residue that's left on the rim from the manufacturing process. This is a really important step because getting all that oily residue off is going to help the tape stick to the metal of the rim. I'm also using a heat gun to take off the warning sticker on the rim so that we have a nice clean surface. Then I use the Gorilla Tape and do about a 8 millimeter strip down the concavity of the rim, which is the curved part. So we're just covering our spoke holes with this first strip. Next, we'll use the low heat setting on the heat gun to heat up the surface of the tape and press it into the curved part of the rim so that it's very well adhered, and ideally we're getting any air bubbles out. So for this next segment of tape, which is going to go over the first one / layer, we want it to be about 23 millimeters wide so that it covers the full width of the wheel rim. So we're just carefully applying this, and in some places it's a little wide, and you can kind of use your judgment here. You can decide to let it overlap a little bit and mount the tire any way, or use a small razor blade to trim the segments that are going over the lip of the metal rim. So we just trim those off so we get a nice smooth flat application onto the flat part of the wheel rim, not the edge. That way the tire can sit flush on the metal sidewall of the rim and hopefully get a really good seal that will be reinforced with the tubeless tire sealant, which is latex based. So that latex sealant will fill any of the tiny air gaps within the enclosure. Alright, now we'll use our handy dandy heat gun on the low heat setting and just apply some low heat to the second layer of tape and work it in, try and eliminate any air bubbles or gaps so we have a nice application as best we can over this rim. If you're watching this and you're a bike mechanic expert and you know of a better way to do this on this specific wheel, please let me know and let the community know in the comments below. Now that we have our rim nicely taped, we can grab our tire and just heat it up. Notice I'm not wearing gloves here, which is optional, but without gloves I can tell when the tire's just warm, kind of like a warm cookie coming out of an oven that you can touch with your hand, so definitely not damaging it in any way. And that allows me to mount the first bead pretty easily on the tire. Obviously we have no tube that we need to put in now, so we'll go ahead and add our valve core by using a wire to plug a little hole through the tape we just added, and then we can push our valve core through that hole, get a nice seal, put on the O-ring, put on the nut, and that valve stem, I apologize for calling it a core, I get those mixed up when I do the voiceover sometimes, is ready to go. So we did a quick reheating of the rim, so that makes it easier to finish completely mounting the tire. And now we're ready to check the mount and the seal by slowly adding air. I feel very confident in this design from doing the front, so I'm a little less cautious with your protection and gloves, but if you're doing this for the first time, definitely be cautious, inflate slow, wear gloves, wear your protection just in case you have an explosion. You don't want to hurt yourself. Now that we have verified that the tire holds air and doesn't leak through any part of the tire, the bead sets, the tape's good, we're going to go ahead and prep our tubeless tire sealant by using this handy dandy Tupperware, which helps us measure our 4 ounces of sealant. I always go for the max, and we'll do it on the scale so we can keep track of the grams in weight and then just compare that to the original tube for fun. So those numbers are cool. And next we will use our sealant injector to inject that sealant into the wheel. You can see that the valve stem is on the bottom part of the wheel, and that way the sealant just flows in with gravity. The other thing is when I inject with the plunger, once I finish the injection, I slowly pull the plunger back, and that helps reduce the amount of sealant that comes out of the valve stem. And then I'll just go ahead and clean that off with a shop rag. Next we'll put our valve core in with our valve core tool, and then slowly inflate our wheel to pressure. So we'll do about 3 bars, about a half bar below max, just to be extra cautious for this first inflation. Then we'll close the Presta valve and spin the wheel around to get that sealant all over the place. And then we'll put this wheel right back on this bike and give those cranks a good spin. After that, we're done and ready to go for a ride.